Hey guys, it's your favorite software engineer here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing about improving our skills as software engineers, right? Whether you have been developing as an engineer for a very long while or you're just getting started, it's very important that we actually learn how to improve our skills. And I believe many of us already have this down to a T, right? But for the uninitiated, I'm going to be discussing 7 quality ideas by which we can actually improve our skills as engineers and actually become 10x product creators. So let's go. The first tip is to learn new programming languages and frameworks regularly, right? So software development is always constantly evolving. New technologies come up every single week almost, it seems. And we need to actually learn most of this, right? Some are actually very important to the developments in the future, and it's very important that we actually have a framework of learning these skills, right? So one technique would be to always schedule every year, right, that you will actually learn a new framework, at least one or two. Two is a good number, right? Spread it out between both quarters. Let's say you are doing Laravel, right? You're actually very good at working with Laravel framework, PHP Laravel, and you see another framework running aside and beside it, like Symfony, right? Let's say you want to actually switch roles, you might need Symfony in the future, right? So you actually take time to learn Symfony in the first quarter of the year, right? And then you can actually go ahead to learn another framework, maybe Node.js or Go, right? It's always a good idea to always schedule in your plans that you actually learn a new framework every year, one or two for good measure. The second tip is to actually practice high-end concepts regularly. The best way to improve your skill or your experience, right, is to practice hands-on with most of these technologies or these high-end concepts that you actually learn. Let's say you actually learn about singletons, dependency injection, or some design pattern, right? The best way to actually master these things are to find ways to apply them. So you could take on projects every week, right? Little projects every week that actually make use of these concepts and actually apply them within those projects. Now you don't have to actually let go of your life essentially and become a coder day 24/7, right? But it's a good idea to always find some time every week, 1 hour or two. You can spread the project across several days and then take on these particular concepts weekly, monthly, weekly or monthly, right? So actually find time to put yourself in that position to learn these new concepts every week. And now this brings us to our third tip: schedule learning periods, right? It's always a prerogative of ours to always be constantly learning new technologies, engaging new skills, right? But many of us don't actually have the time to do that. We have other engagements in life aside being software engineers. We need to take on some activities with respect to our families and errands and other things like that, right? So we need to actually find a model to create some time for ourselves, right? So we need to learn to schedule some time for our learnings. You could do this on a particular day every week, right? You could be your Saturdays, maybe the early hours, right? You could just schedule about an hour, 2 or 3 for learning new concepts or working on other ideas that you might actually want to learn about. So that is a good way to always get some learning experience. There's also the idea of scheduling some periods after work every week, right? Maybe just 1 more hour. Or if you are working in 9 to 5, you don't really need the entire 9 to 5 to work, right? You could work like in 9 to 4, and then the last hour you could actually work or check out a new concept or something that you're actually trying to master. That's a very good way to actually go about that, right? So always learn to schedule some learning periods for yourself. The fourth tip is to actually learn to organize your work. Now this comes in many different facets, right? There's always the idea of organizing your environment, your space or your workspace, right? The first tip here is to actually have a dedicated workspace in which you can actually do all of your work, right? We will talk more about that in some other video. But learn to organize your process of doing work, right? Learn to document your activities, the different ideas that you might have come across, and this is very important for communication, right? Learn to actually get a structure to documenting your flow, how you actually take on tasks, the different activities that you actually engage, and the research that you must have gone through or that you must have learned in order to get some certain solutions. With the rise of remote work, it's very important that you actually dial down the core ideas of communication, right? When it comes to remote work, you are actually very communicative in your process and in your style of work, because you're actually working with different people in different locations. So the work is actually as the communication is actually asynchronous in many areas and forms. So let me just give you some side tips to this process. The first one is to use clear and concise language, right? Avoid technical jargons that not everybody understands. So I try to make your words as clear and familiar to people as possible within your team, and be very direct and straight to the point. There's no need to ramble on about different other technologies. Learn to actually give your answers, right? Or seek what you're looking for in a very direct and straightforward manner. Secondly, is to learn to use written communication wherever possible and however possible, right? This is always much more better than just verbal communication in most areas, because people tend to forget things. Learn to write down your messages in retrievable resources, right? Like Slack, email, and learn to actually arrange your ideas in a very clear, concise manner, as mentioned before, right? Written communication over verbal communication, anytime. Next, use video communication, that is video conference discussion like Zoom or Meet, right? For much more important discussions, right? Written communication is all good and fine, but there are some times whereby the ideas that need to be discussed are so important, and you actually need some level of clarity to it in terms of communication, that you actually need to actually have a video call, right? Face to face, discuss with the person, get their feedback, get their ideas, and actually get a clear understanding of what they're actually looking for, right? Or what they're trying to understand. Video communication always works fine with that. Also, learn to communicate proactively and regularly, right? Always seek out a chance to communicate with your teammates. Remote work isn't done in isolation, and you don't exactly have the space of time to actually be in a cubicle and no one would disturb you. You can always ask your teammates to give you some time periods whereby you can actually be unavailable, right? But make your availability known to all. Always also seek out to help others, because it's important that you're actually showing them that you are available, that you are there. And the only way you can actually do this most of the time is for them to actually see your presence or feel your presence around, right? Always reach out to others. How are you doing? What can I help you with? If you have the time to, right? So learn to communicate regularly and proactively. The next idea is to use visual aids, right? Diagrams, charts, feed systems, anything that actually shows them or shows people exactly what you're talking about, right? Show it in a very clear manner that they can actually get a better understanding of what you're actually looking for, right? The core idea here is to ensure that they understand what you're actually saying, and that you can actually present your ideas in both written and in both written form and in verbal form, and actually present some sort of aid for people to actually understand, even later on in the future when they come back to that particular resource, right? So clarity is key in this space. Next, learn to set clear expectations and deadlines. This is very, very important, right? It may take you some time to actually understand exactly what this means for your work, in terms of how long will it take to accomplish this, what do I need to achieve in this particular section to get this level of a process or of work done, right? You have to actually learn to time yourself in certain operations that you do, right? Get a clear understanding of what the time expectations are for yourself, right, while working on certain features, certain projects, so you can actually give clever deadlines to others. When they ask you how long will it take to achieve this, what do we need to do to actually get this done, you can actually be very much more clear on that, right? So a tip here is to time yourself in certain operations. There's different tools for this. There's a tool called Toggle, right? You can actually use it in timing yourself in various projects that you're working on. How long did it take you to finish this feature? What that is essentially for you to get clearer expectations in terms of what you tell others, as per, okay, this is what I will actually achieve, and this is how long it will take me to achieve this, right? So learn to set clearer expectations and deadlines, essentially. So with those, your communication should be much more top notch and much more clearer in terms of being a functional member of a team, right? This will actually help you with the general idea of organizing your work process and your workflow. this is what actually makes some developers actually more in terms of being 10x engineers. Their communication is really, really important. Tip number 5 is to learn to debug more efficiently, right? Most of the time in software engineering is actually spent in debugging, not just writing the functionalities, fixing them, because you're likely to have bugs all over the place, right? So here are some tips to actually get better at this. First of all, learn to use the debugging techniques, the core debugging techniques of the particular language or framework that you're actually working with, right? Many frameworks actually allow for testing suites and testing systems, right? So learn to actually write these testing suites essentially in the required language, right? In PHP there's PHP units, in JavaScript there's Jest, Mocha, and different Mocha. Is it Mocha or Mocha? Mocha, and different other testing suites or testing tools, right? Learn to actually write test driven development, or learn to follow test driven development rather, and also learn to use the different tools that are available to you in terms of the console tools and in terms of monitoring tools, right? The browser, for example, is a very good tool with the inspector tool, right, to monitor the calls that you actually make. Also learn to use print statements, right, like the console log statements. Learn to use them at appropriate points. Learn to configure your debuggers and loggers, right? This will actually help you catch errors in higher spaces, right? Let's say in production, or let's say in testing systems, right, or live testing suites. You can actually use your debugging tools like Sentry or any other logging tool that you actually have on your systems, right? So learn to use these different tools to debug effectively. Now also pay more attention to the documentation of the language or of the frameworks that you're actually working with, right? Many of us don't actually take time to read through the documentation. Take some time to read through it. It's the Bible for the framework. It's your framework Bible, right? Study it, read through it, get clearer understanding of what needs to be done in certain aspects, right? How different things are being achieved. Because many times we spend so much time writing features that are already provided by the framework itself, right? You don't need to actually create certain features if they are already available, right? So learn to actually study up on the frameworks they are using and get clearer understanding of how things are being done within that particular set. Tip number 6 is to learn to write clean, maintainable code, right? There's a whole doctrine to this process, and there's certain principles with respect to actually developing the skill sets of creating cleaner code, right? There's the solid principle, right? There's this book written a long time, not really a long time ago, but I've forgotten the author's name. I think I'll paste it at the bottom here below. Called Clean Code, right? That book actually really helped me. You actually learn to write to write better declarations, better variable names, right? Learn to properly structure your functions and actually use the OOP concepts more properly, right? If some very good ideas to actually study up on is the design patterns for object-oriented engineering, and also the design patterns for functional development, functional programming, essentially, right? There are also other tools that you can use within them, like singletons, dependency injection. Essentially, learn to write clean code that is maintainable in the long run. And that's just the core idea of it, right? So that brings us to our tip number 7: improve continuously. This involves many different processes, right? Learn to attend conferences. I know many of us don't like conferences. I don't like conferences. I don't like going out. I don't like leaving my house. But yeah, it's important. Learn to attend conferences. You get to meet new people, learn new things, right? See what others actually engage within your field, and learn what the market is actually looking for, right? Also, learn to read up on technical blogs, right? See what other the ideas that different people around you are actually coming up with, and learn to write these technical articles too, right? It actually gives you the skill of documentation, creating a process to your ideas, right? Like setting up prerequisites, and then the actual contents of documentation, and coding examples and things like that. You actually learn that in the process of reading up on technical articles and trying to write your own technical articles. It's been a while since I've written some, but I think I might get back to that. So essentially, just be continuously improving, right? Take up the idea and the process of going out to look for these different meetups, right, conferences that might be happening around you. Keep an eye out for them, and yeah, with that you actually continuously improve your process as a software engineer. Learn about new tools and meet people who can actually help you move up to the next level, essentially, right? So that's my 7 tips for improving yourself as a software engineer. I hope to follow my tips as well, and essentially keep on improving. That's just the core idea of it. In conclusion, right, improving yourself as a software engineer takes a lot of dedication and effort, right? From all of different ideas that we discussed, right? Writing cleaner code, and different other concepts, scheduling learning times and different things like that, right? It's a continuous process. It will take you some time, right? But if you make it habitual, you will have built a core foundation for improving yourself within this field. I know that many people see some software engineers as so high level, and then how do I get to this level? It's about continuing, right? It's about making the effort, the daily effort, the daily effort to actually just get there, right? Take the step every single day. As long as you're doing that, you'll be right there with us. Yeah, you'll be right there with us, right? So always take that step, right? Continuously improving, and the sky is the limit for real. So with that, stay up to date with the latest technologies, right? And subscribe to this channel. There's a button somewhere down there below, right, in this corner of the screen, right? So yeah, subscribe to this channel, and you'll be seeing more videos from me and other creators on how to level up as a software engineer. Well, thanks for reaching this particular point in this video. Peace.